Hey everyone, welcome to Study Hub. My name is Pravalika. Today we will be exploring narrative writing. These are our objectives. We will be exploring what narrative writing is, we will be looking at some tips and tricks, and we'll also be looking at a question and an example. So let's first understand what narrative writing even is. So, narrative writing is a style of writing that uses the technique of narration to present a series of events that leads to an expected or unexpected end. Over here, you can see the Freytag experiment. First, you start off with the exposition. Exposition is where you give an introduction to the setting and the character. Then comes the inciting incident. This is where a short intro is given to the problem. Then comes the rising action. This is where the problem is being developed. Then comes the climax, where the problem is at its peak. Then the falling action, where the problem is being solved. And then you have the resolution. Here are some types of conflict: person versus nature, person versus destiny, person versus society, person versus technology, and person versus supernatural. And your narrative writing could be based on any of these conflicts. Now here's an image which shows person versus society. Now let's understand what plots are. So plots are sequence of cause and effect, and they are events in chronological order. Um, you can write your narrative writing in a different way as well, which is known as Fitch-Taylor curve. This is where you directly start off with the crisis. So the protagonist is faced by multiple crises, and then you have the climax. This is where the problems are at its peak, and then you have the falling action. This is where the problem is being solved, and this is how most of the action movies are. Now let's understand the 7-point story structure. So as the name suggests, there are 7 points in the structure. First of all, you have the hook. This is the setup or exposition of a story. Then the plot point 1. This is the inciting incident. Then pinch 1, which is a movement of pressure for your protagonist or character. Then the midpoint. This is where a character moves from reaction to action. Then pinch point 2. This is where a character suffers a major defeat. Then plot turn 2. This is the grasping victory from the jaws of defeat. Then the resolution. This is the end state of your story. Now comes the 3-act structure. As the name suggests, there are 3 acts. So in the first act, you have the exposition, then the inciting incident, then the plot point 1. In act 2, you have the rising action, midpoint, and plot point 2. And finally, you have the pre-climax and the climax. After that, you have the resolution. Now all of you must be wondering, how does pre-climax make it any different from rising action? So pre-climax heightens up the suspense and makes the audience think, what could be the resolution? Whereas rising action is where the problems are taking place, where the problems are being developed. Now here's a writing organizer for all of you. First of all, there is an orientation. It sets the scene and mood, and it introduces the characters. Then comes the complication. This is the dilemma or problem that sets off the events. Then the sequence of events. They are triggered by the complication. And finally, the resolution. So this is the climax or ending where the problem is resolved. Now here's a question which I have taken from June paper 2, question 2. Variant 2. Now let's look at narrative writing. Question number 4. Write a story with the title The Lake. So I have chosen this question, and just for your practice, all of you can do question number 5. Now answer to question number 4. I stood by the lake, the surface shining due to the golden sun. Tired, I knelt down and touched its smooth and silky surface as the memories came flooding back to me. Thinking about one tragic incident that took place in the past sent shivers through me. I had moved back from Sydney with my family. My sister Lily and I used to visit the lake every day and enjoy our time. We used to catch fishes and have swimming competitions. Then came a fateful day. The sky was dark, the clouds ready to rage and show their power. Our parents had warned us, but of course we ignored it and headed to the lake. We were in our boat when the waves hit us strongly. The boat was overturned. For a split second, I had no idea what had happened. I watched the fishes swim rapidly in the lake. Even though I was numb due to the icy cold water, I pushed through the inevitable force. I tried to catch my breath and soon spotted my sister. She was a strong swimmer, but I had to help her out in the menacing storm. The shore seemed to be really far, but with every ounce of energy, we pushed forward and finally reached the shore. My sister collapsed as soon as we reached the shore. I got worried. Even though I was numb, I could still feel the warm trickle of fresh sweat trickle down my cheek. Fortunately, my sister could recover herself after I made her feel warm. We finally head back home triggered by the recent incident, wet and dripping. I came back to my senses. That was 7 years back. My sister is now doing her PhD and I'm in Princeton University. What an incident that was. So, this is a simple example of a narrative writing. Now, let's analyze it. So, we can see that in the first slide, I talked about, I gave a short introduction to the setting and the character. And then I gave an introduction to the inciting incident. Then the rising action took place. And now over here we can see that the climax is there and finally the resolution. So I have used the Freytag's pyramid in my narrative writing. And also, let me just give you all some tips. So, when you are narrating your story in a first person point of view, never use I multiple times. Use even though or unfortunately or fortunately, things like that. And use a good vocabulary to show the examiner that yes, you have a good and strong vocabulary. And then narrate your incidents in a sequence. Make sure that it's not confusing for the examiner and you, first for you, understand the entire story. And finally, thank you everyone. And I just want to let you all know that all images have been taken for educational purposes only. And please like, share, and subscribe. And um, do listen to more videos of mine. And please do share comments on my videos so that I can improve myself. Thank you everyone.